If you had told me 2 years ago that I'd be the one to break us, I would have laughed in your face. Ethan and I were the couple everyone pointed to as the example. The kind you hate a little because they always look so together. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. But there's a funny thing about love. Sometimes, it starts to fade in places no one else can see. We stop finishing each other's sentences. We stop noticing when the bed feels colder on one side. And eventually you stop asking why. We met in college, me an art student with no real plan. Him, a finance major with a 5-year roadmap to success. I think that's what I loved about him. He was solid, predictable, the kind of man who made lists, kept promises, and remembered to pack umbrellas just in case. He made me feel like the world couldn't tilt if he was holding it steady. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling held. And I started feeling observed, measured, weighed, labeled tired, moody, distant. I blamed the job, the schedule, the stress. But the truth, I was lonely in a house that was always full. And then there were them, Liam and Jordan. They weren't strangers. God no, they were Ethan's closest friends. The kind who show up with takeout when you're sick, who help you move, who know where the coffee filters are without asking. They were his best men at our wedding, his brothers in everything but blood. And in a way, they were mine too. It started with small things. A laugh held a little too long, a glance that felt like it had weight behind it. Inside jokes I wasn't part of, then ones I was. We'd all hang out on weekends. Wine, games, talking late into the night while Ethan dozed off on the couch, exhausted from work. And I'd be left sitting between them, buzzing from the wine and the warm low light, and the feeling, that strange heavy feeling of being seen. Liam was the charming one, always knew what to say to make you feel interesting. He remembered my favorite brand of tea, the exact way I liked my toast, the title of a book I mentioned once a year ago. Jordan was quieter, thoughtful, the type who'd sit beside you and just listen, who watched more than he spoke. But when he did speak, it was never filler. It was precise, piercing. I never crossed a line. Not really. But there were moments that still replay in my head at night. Moments I wouldn't have wanted Ethan to walk in on. Not because we were doing anything wrong, but because of how I felt. I told myself it was innocent. I told myself I needed friends. I told myself it was his fault for being so distant. Funny how easy it is to lie when the lie makes you feel good. And now, I'm here, in this silence, telling a story I never meant to live. You're probably wondering what happened, what really happened, but not yet. You need to feel it the way I did. The slow unraveling, the tension, the cracks that no one noticed until the whole thing shattered. This isn't a story about a bad man. It's about a good one. And what I did to him anyway. It's strange how something can shift, almost imperceptibly, and you don't even realize it until you're already in the new version of your life. After that night with Liam and Jordan, I started noticing details I'd ignored before. Like how Jordan always asked me how I was sleeping, not in the casual "how's it going" way, but like he genuinely wanted to know, like he could see I wasn't. Or how Liam, during game night, would refill my glass before I even noticed it was empty. They never crossed a line, not in the obvious sense, but the energy, the atmosphere, it was like standing too close to a fire. Not enough to burn, but enough to feel the heat against your skin. And a part of me didn't want to step back. Ethan never noticed. Or maybe he did, and didn't want to deal with it. He was working late most nights, glued to his laptop, chasing another promotion, another client, another future for us that I wasn't sure I even wanted anymore. And me, I started finding reasons to linger when Liam came by to fix the faucet or borrow a charger. I stopped mentioning to Ethan when Jordan and I ended up staying late at the office together. I started wearing perfume again, just a little, just in case. One Sunday, it was raining hard, and Ethan was out of town for a conference. I didn't want to spend the evening alone, so I texted our group chat, Ethan, Liam, Jordan, and me. Only the two of them answered. Come over, they said. We'll make pasta. Watch something dumb. So I did. It was just the three of us. Like it had been 100 times before. Only it wasn't. There was something different in the way Jordan looked at me when I walked in. Like he'd been waiting. Like he'd been thinking about me. like he knew I was coming, even before I said yes. Liam opened a bottle of wine. We laughed too loud, the kind of laughter that tries to cover something else underneath. And when the power flickered off for a second, just a flicker, we all froze, silent for a breath too long. I still remember the sound of the rain hitting the windows, the low hum of a record playing in the background, and the way the candlelight made Liam's face look older, sadder, more intense. I think that was the moment I knew. Nothing had happened. Not really, but something had already begun. And once that door opens, you don't always get to close it again. The next morning, Ethan came home, kissed me, asked how the weekend was. I smiled, told him it was quiet. Watched something, had wine early night. I didn't lie, not exactly, but there was something in my chest now, curled up and breathing, something alive. After that, I started to pull away from Ethan. Not in obvious ways, just small things. I didn't reach for his hand when we walked. I stopped texting him during the day. I started sleeping in later, answering with nods instead of words. And every time we met up with the guys, every time Liam would sit across from me and smirk, or Jordan would brush past my shoulder a second too long, I felt it again. The warmth, the danger. It scared me, and thrilled me, and made me feel more awake than I had in years. I told myself I was still in control, that this was just something to get me through a hard patch, that I'd never actually do anything, but I'd already started hiding parts of myself from my husband. And secrets, I've learned, are like cracks in glass, tiny at first, until suddenly, everything shatters. It happened on a Thursday, one of those slow, heavy evenings where the air feels too still, and everything tastes like routine. Ethan was supposed to come home early. We'd made vague plans to cook together, something we hadn't done in months. But then at 6:17 he texted, "Emergency call with Singapore. Might be late. Don't wait up." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Not because I was surprised, I wasn't, but because I realized I didn't feel disappointed. I felt relieved. 10 minutes later, Liam texted the group chat, a photo of an empty pizza box and a half-finished beer. Jordan bailed. "Guess it's just me tonight. He's still on that pasta craving." I should have said no. Instead, I replied, "On my way." I didn't dress up. Just jeans, an old gray sweater, hair in a clip. Nothing special. But when Liam opened the door and smiled that crooked half-smile of his, something tightened in my chest. "Didn't think you'd actually come," he said, stepping aside. I shrugged. Didn't feel like eating alone. He poured us wine, red, dry, earthy. I could smell it from across the table. The radio was playing something soft and jazzy, the lights low. We sat close. Not touching, but close. Dinner was nothing fancy. Pasta, overcooked garlic bread, and olives from a jar. But the conversation, it slid between us like silk. We talked about music, movies, what we wanted to do when we were younger. He said he used to think he'd be a musician, back before real life happened. "You still could," I said a little too softly. He looked at me then. Really looked. "You think?" And I nodded. That was it. Just a nod. But something passed between us. Something warm and reckless. After dinner, we moved to the couch. We didn't sit far apart this time. And when I laughed at something he said, he reached out, just to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. It was innocent. It was not innocent. I didn't pull away, and he didn't apologize. The moment held, then passed. I left not long after, heart pounding in my throat, hands shaking as I locked my seatbelt. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Heading home. Want me to pick up dessert? I stared at the screen, fingers hovering. Then I typed. Just had dinner. Already full. See you soon. A simple message. But it was my first real lie. Not a lie about where I was, but a lie about who I was becoming. When I got home, Ethan was in the kitchen, still in his work clothes, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He looked tired. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey babe," he said, reaching for a hug. And I let him. I hugged him back. I even kissed him on the cheek. But in my head, I wasn't in that room anymore. I was still sitting on Liam's couch, still hearing his laugh, still feeling the phantom trace of his fingers brushing my skin. That night I couldn't sleep, not because I felt guilty, but because for the first time in months, I felt wanted. and I wasn't ready to let that feeling go. It all became clear when Jordan asked me to get coffee after work. Just to catch up, he wrote. Nothing serious. I said yes. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from the office. He was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, wearing that same quiet expression he always had, like he was watching the world a little more closely than everyone else. I sat down. We ordered drinks. At first, it was just small talk, work, emails, weekend plans. Then he looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" I hesitated. "Yeah. Why?" He tilted his head slightly. His eyes didn't move. "You've been different lately. I noticed things." I felt my stomach tighten. "It's nothing." He waited a few seconds, then said softer, "Is it about Ethan?" I didn't answer, just looked down at my hands. Then, almost without thinking, I said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm not really in my life. Like I'm watching it from outside, going through the motions, doing all the right things. But inside it's quiet. Too quiet." Jordan didn't speak at first. Then he nodded. "I know that feeling," he said. I looked up at him. His eyes were darker than usual. Focused, calm but intense. "Do you ever talk to Ethan about it?" he asked. "He's too busy. And even when he's home, I don't think he sees me anymore." He leaned back in his chair, looking at me like he was choosing every word carefully. "Does Liam know how you feel?" That caught me off guard. "What? No. Why would he?" Jordan raised one eyebrow, just slightly. "Because he looks at you like he does." The air changed. Completely. My mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" I asked. He shrugged, but his eyes never left mine. "I'm saying I see the way he looks at you, and the way you look back." I didn't deny it. I didn't have to. Jordan took a sip of his coffee, then said, "You know, you're not the only one who's felt it." "Felt what?" I whispered. He looked directly at me now. No smile. No softness. "Whatever this is between us." My chest tightened. I wanted to speak, to shut it down, to say this is wrong, or you're imagining it. But I didn't, because he wasn't imagining it, and neither was I. We sat in silence for a long moment, the kind that says more than words. Then he leaned in, not too close, just enough. "You don't have to say anything. I'm not trying to complicate things." But it was already complicated, because now it wasn't just Liam. Now it was Jordan too. Two men, both close to my husband, both looking at me like they saw something he didn't. And I was letting them. It happened on a Friday night. Ethan was away for a work trip. Chicago. 3 days. He kissed me goodbye that morning, said, "I'll call before bed." I told him, "Of course." I lied. Around 8 p.m., Liam texted, "Movie night?" "Just me. No Jordan." I stared at the message for a full minute. My heart beat faster. I could have said no. I could have stayed home. I could have remembered who I was. Instead, I replied, "Be there in 30. I didn't dress up, but I cared about how I looked. Blue sweater, no bra. Lip balm. A bit of mascara. Enough to feel noticed. When I got to his place, the lights were low. He handed me a glass of wine, smiled the way he always did, like he knew a joke I didn't. We sat on the couch, close but not touching. The movie played. I have no idea what it was. I wasn't watching. I was thinking about how loud the room felt in its silence. Halfway through the film, my knee touched his. I didn't move it. Neither did he. He turned to me slow. "You don't want to talk about Ethan, do you?" I shook my head. "Didn't think so." He reached out and tucked a piece of hair behind my ear. I let him. Then he said quietly, "If you stay, you can't pretend this is just a movie night." I looked at him. Everything in me was screaming. Guilt, desire, fear, want. And then I nodded. That was it. We didn't rush. It wasn't wild or dramatic. It was slow, almost gentle, like we both knew it was wrong, but didn't care enough to stop. He kissed me like he'd been thinking about it for months. I kissed him back like I'd been starving. Afterward, I lay next to him in his bed, staring at the ceiling, chest rising and falling like I'd run a marathon. Neither of us said anything. When I finally got up to leave, he didn't stop me. Just watched me pull my sweater back on. At the door, he asked, "Will you regret this?" I didn't know how to answer, so I said nothing, and walked out. When I got home, I stood in the shower for 30 minutes. Not crying, not even thinking, just standing there. The water was hot, but I still felt cold. Ethan texted later that night. Just finished dinner. Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. I stared at the message. Typed I love you. Deleted it. Typed good night. Sent it. Then I turned off my phone and lay in the dark, trying to pretend I still recognized myself. But I didn't. And the worst part, a part of me wanted to do it again. I didn't plan to see Jordan. I actually tried to avoid him. After Liam, I told myself I'd stop, that it was a mistake, a one-time thing, that I wasn't that kind of woman. But 2 days later, at work, Jordan walked into my office and closed the door behind him. He didn't sit. He just looked at me. You don't have to lie, he said. I felt my throat tighten. What do you mean? Liam told me. My heart dropped. Not because I was surprised Liam had said something, but because I wasn't sure why Jordan looked the way he did. Anger? Disappointment? Jealousy? I couldn't tell. He crossed his arms, leaned against the wall. I just need to know one thing, he said. Was it just him? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what the truth was anymore. He pushed away from the wall, walked slowly toward me. You said I wasn't the only one who felt it, he said, voice low. So either you meant it, or you didn't. I stood up too fast, my chair scraping behind me. Jordan. But he was already in front of me. Not touching. Just close. If I kiss you right now, he said, will you stop me? I didn't move. Not a word. Not a breath. That was the answer. He kissed me. Not soft. Not tender. He kissed me like he'd been holding back for years, and he wasn't going to anymore. And I let him. God help me, I kissed him back. Didn't happen that day. Not completely. But it did eventually. 1 week later, after work, his apartment. Quiet. Slow.
No excuses. No drinks. No pretending.
It was different from Liam. Quieter. Deeper. Like something emotional finally clicked into place. And that made it even more dangerous. When it was over, I sat on the edge of his bed, fully dressed again, tying my hair back up. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me. Does he know? He asked. I looked up. Liam. He nodded. I shrugged.
No.
But maybe he suspects. He didn't smile. Didn't say anything. And I didn't ask him to. That night, walking home, I realized something that made my stomach twist. They both thought they were the only one. And I was living a lie inside a lie. To Ethan. To them. And to myself. I didn't expect him to come in like that. Without knocking. Without warning. Just closing the office door behind him and locking it. Jordan. His eyes were darker than usual. Focused. Sharp. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at me. Like he already knew. You slept with him, he said quietly. I stood up too quickly, heart pounding. Jordan. But I didn't deny it. He took 2 steps forward. You told me I wasn't the only one who felt it. I couldn't speak. I didn't have to. He crossed the room in 3 strides.
No hesitation.
And then, he kissed me. Hard. Desperate. Like something inside him had finally snapped. His hands were on my waist, firm, pulling me closer. My back hit the bookshelf behind me, papers falling, I didn't care. I kissed him back just as hard. My fingers in his hair, breath catching. My body already leaning into his without thinking. It wasn't slow. It wasn't sweet. It was need. Everything we hadn't said came out in how we touched. His mouth on my neck. My hands under his shirt, feeling how warm his skin was, how tense. His jacket hit the floor. My sweater followed. He lifted me onto the edge of my desk like I weighed nothing, lips never leaving mine. My legs wrapped around his waist instinctively. The friction was unbearable. Jeans against jeans, heat against heat. I could feel how badly he wanted me, and I wanted him just as much. We didn't speak. Not a word. Just breathing. Hands. Mouths. He pulled my bra strap down slowly like he needed to see me. Just for a second. His fingers brushed over bare skin and I shivered. Everything inside me was shaking with guilt, yes, but not enough to stop. He pushed forward, hips pressing against me hard. I gasped. My hand tightened in his hair. His lips moved to my collarbone, then lower. My head tilted back, eyes fluttering shut. The sounds of his breathing, of my own, filled the quiet office. And then, my phone buzzed on the desk behind me. Ethan's name lit up the screen. I saw it over Jordan's shoulder. We both froze. Jordan's hand was still under my shirt. My thighs still wrapped around him. We were one movement away from going all the way. I didn't answer the phone. Let it ring. Let it fade. Then I looked at him and whispered, "Lock the door." He already had. And after that we didn't stop. Not until it was done. Not until everything had changed. It was a Wednesday, late September. I remember because the air smelled like smoke from the first fireplaces of the season. Ethan was quiet that morning. Too quiet. He kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, but he didn't look me in the eye. I should have known then, but I didn't. I went through my day pretending everything was normal, like I wasn't sleeping with two of his closest friends, like I wasn't completely unraveling my life behind his back. That night he texted me, "Dinner at 7. I made a reservation. We never went out midweek. Ever. I stared at the message for a long time. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to answer. Okay. Looking forward to it. At 6:55, I walked into the restaurant. He was already there, sitting at a table in the corner, not smiling. There was a small black box next to his wine glass. It looked like something you'd keep jewelry in, but I knew it wasn't jewelry. I sat down. He didn't greet me, just said, "You know what this is?" I shook my head, even though something in my chest already knew. He opened the box and took out a USB drive, set it on the table between us. "I wanted to give you a chance to tell me first." My throat went dry. "Tell you what?" I whispered. He tilted his head slightly, like he was studying a stranger. "That you slept with Liam." Silence. "And Jordan." I froze. That's when I knew. He hadn't guessed. He knew. How? He didn't let me finish. "You left your phone unlocked. Once. That was all it took. Texts, calendar entries, one audio recording. And Liam." He paused. "He's a mess. He was going to tell me himself. I just beat him to it. I couldn't breathe. Ethan, don't." His voice was low, flat. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. He slid the USB drive closer to me. "This is a copy. The original's with my lawyer." I stared at it like it was a grenade. "Are you divorcing me?" He looked me dead in the eye. "What do you think?" I didn't cry. Not then. I think part of me had been waiting for this moment. Like some sick part of me needed to be caught to finally feel something real again. But then he said something I wasn't ready for. "You didn't just cheat on me." He leaned forward. "You humiliated me. You used the two people I trusted most to do it. And the worst part." He paused. "You still don't even look sorry." And maybe I didn't. Because in that moment, I didn't know what I felt. Shame? Relief? Loss? All I could say was, "I didn't plan it." He laughed once, short, bitter. "No one ever does." He stood up, left a $100 bill on the table. "We'll talk through the lawyers." And then he walked out. He didn't look back. And just like that, it was over. All of it. The marriage. The lies. The version of me that thought she could get away with it. I sat there for a long time after he left, watching the USB on the table, knowing exactly what was on it. Every moment. Every sound. Every message. Everything I thought I could hide. He saw it all. And now so did I.